Well, quite a surprise last night. The pollsters all told us, hey, Hillary's going to win this thing. Before James Comey came out with his October surprise, the Democrats were going to take the House and the Senate, or the Senate and the House. Then after the October surprise, it kind of collapsed down to, well, the Democrats will take the Senate anyway, and certainly the White House. I mean, who's going to vote for that Cheeto-faced bozo? Well, that Cheeto-faced bozo is now our president, or will be on January 20th. So what do we learn from this? How did this happen? Where do we go from here? How do we deal with this? I want to start out by acknowledging the historic nature of Hillary Clinton's candidacy. This is the first time a woman has run for president of the United States as the candidate of one of the two leading parties. I know Shirley Chisholm started that process back in the day, but didn't end up the Democratic or Republican nominee. But this is a big deal. And Jill Stein was running on the Green Party and that kind of thing. But this was a historic candidacy. And in an extraordinarily gracious, acceptance is the wrong word. What's the... Okay. Let me find it first. Okay, great. Hang on just a second. Excuse me, I've got to do something technical here. Okay. So, acknowledging the extraordinary, nature of this. I mean, this is the first woman to run for president. Women only got the vote less than 100 years ago. It's been, 94 years since 1920? So, I had an Uber driver this morning, and he was like, well, America isn't ready for a woman yet. I don't think that was it. I'll grant you, misogyny is real and huge and all that sort of thing. But I don't think that was it. I think that this was a classic example of a long game Republican strategy where the Republicans were playing chess and the Democrats basically were playing checkers. And the Republicans ate their lunch as a consequence of it. Let me lay out my thoughts on this for you. I mean, just in a very straightforward fashion. Jim DeMint. This in the modern era, a lot of this, well, really, this started with Lewis Powell back in 1971. I wrote about this in Crash of 2016. I mean, that book basically predicted today. And Lewis Powell back in the early 70s said to business, you guys have to get political. You got to start buying politicians. You got to start taking over universities. You got to start taking over the media. You got to consolidate the media so you can have a consistent voice. You've got to create think tanks. And out of that came the Heritage Foundation and Cato and ALEC and all this other stuff. It all came out of the Powell memo. So fast forward to 2009. January 20th, 2009. Jim DeMint, then a senator from North or South Carolina, was at a meeting, the caucus room conspiracy, right? Was at a meeting with a bunch of other powerful Republicans, Frank Luntz, Paul Ryan, Eric Cantor, Kevin McCarthy, Pete Sessions, Jeb Hensling, Pete Hoekstra, Dan Lundgren, John Kyle, Tom Coburn, John Ensign, Bob Corker, and Newt Gingrich, in a private room in the caucus room restaurant. The question was, how do we destroy the Obama presidency? This was the night when President and Michelle Obama were dancing at the balls. This was the night of the inauguration. They decided to block everything the president wanted to do. A month or so later, there was a meeting I believe down in Florida, maybe in California, of millionaires and billionaires put together by the Kochs, and Jim DeMint reprised this argument in a debate with John Cornyn, the senator from Texas. And John Cornyn was debating. He was saying, we should fight Obama on the things that Republicans disagree with Democrats on. But on the areas where we agree with Obama, we shouldn't fight him. We should get stuff done. And Jim DeMint said, no, we shouldn't get the stuff done. He should have a completely failed presidency. As Jane Mayer writes in her book, Dark Money, rather than compromising their principles and working with the new administration, DeMint argued, Republicans needed to take a firm stand against Obama, waging a campaign of massive resistance and obstruction, regardless of the 2008 election outcome that had just happened. Cornyn was arguing that, no, we should do what we can. It's those areas where we agree, we should work with it. Mayer writes, sitting silently at the table of the front row through all of this were Charles Koch and his wife Liz. No one came to Cornyn's defense. After hearing both sides, the assembled guests chose the path of extremism. Now, dial back a couple of weeks. President Obama had just been elected president, actually a couple of months, in November. Now, here's a guy, now I remember in the primaries in 2008. Or late 2007. I initially was supporting Hillary Clinton. And I was supporting Hillary Clinton over Barack Obama because an African-American who was the #2 guy, I believe, in the California Democratic Party, might have been the Southern California Democratic Party. It's been 8 years since he was on my show. He came on the program. He says, I'm an African-American, and I'm supporting Hillary Clinton because no way America, which is like 80% white, no way America is going to elect a black man whose middle name is Hussein. And the Republicans, believed that too. I mean, they were hoping for Barack Obama as the candidate. Well, they didn't realize that President Obama was going to campaign as an outsider on the issue of change. The nation wanted change. We had had 30 years of Reaganism and neoliberalism, and it had not been stopped by Bill Clinton, and it had not been stopped by George Bush Sr., and it had not been stopped by George Bush Jr. We were still in the Reagan neoliberal era, and Barack Obama promised hope and change, and so we elected him. So Jim DeMint and this group of Republicans said, let's prevent him from producing that change. And for 8 years, they did that, all the way to the extreme point of even stopping him from putting somebody in the Supreme Court. The consequence of that was that in this election, people still wanted hope and change. They didn't want another establishment figure. Unless that establishment figure, I mean, keep in mind, Barack Obama was a senator, United States senator, unless that establishment figure used the language of hope and change. Now, on the Republican side, you had one person in the primary who was talking hope and change. That was Donald Trump. And you had a bunch of other Republicans who were saying, yep, let's just do what we've always done. Yep, Republicans, And the Republican primary voters said, screw that, we want the hope and change. And on the Democratic side, you saw Bernie nearly take this thing from Hillary Clinton, and that's in the face of a complete media blackout for the entire year of 2015. Because he was promoting hope and change, and Hillary Clinton was, third term of Barack Obama with some changes. I mean, I supported Hillary Clinton's candidacy after Bernie lost to her. I supported both of them. I was very clear about this from the very beginning. I support both these candidates. I endorsed Bernie after he dropped out, after he lost to Hillary Clinton in the primary. I endorsed Hillary Clinton. I continue to think she would have made a good president. I think she could have made a great president. I think Bernie could have made a great president. I think Donald Trump is going to be a disaster. But my point to all this is that this was a change election just like 2008 was. Because the Republicans, with the caucus room conspiracy, conspired to prevent change for 8 years. Trump comes along and says, I want so much change that I'm willing to blow up Republican orthodoxy. Every trade deal from Richard Nixon to today passed Congress with the opposition of a majority of Democrats in both the House and the Senate and the support of the majority of Republicans in both the House and Senate. Free trade deals are totally a Republican thing. Every single one, without exception. And every single trade deal has cost American jobs, without exception. And Donald Trump knew that. I mean, Donald Trump, was saying, hey, screw the trade deals, even though it was the official position of his own Republican Party to love these trade deals and had been since Richard Nixon. I mean, he was so hope and change, he was blowing off his own party. So the American people, we sit around saying, oh, these are stupid people, these are bigoted people, no, the American people, they knew that they were getting, that they wanted change. And, I said on this program, every time and this was back when Bernie and Hillary were running, every time I get an email asking for money from either one of them that specifically addresses the issues, how are you going to change America? I will send you $100. I maxed out to the Bernie campaign. I think it's $2,700, whatever it is. That many times I got the emails from the Bernie campaign and sent them $100. I got 3 issue-based emails from the Clinton campaign. I think Robbie Mook ran a disastrous campaign because he chose to make this campaign about how evil Donald Trump was rather than how Hillary Clinton was going to change the country. He had the raw material. She and Bernie worked out a great platform. I mean, I was the main, very few people even talked about the platform. I was pounding on it on this program constantly. Look at the issue. I've got a list here right in front of me that I kept reading on the air. Gay rights, abortion rights, separation of church and state, tax fairness, drug laws, health care, Citizens United, infrastructure, income inequality, the war on drugs, foreign wars, voting integrity, privacy in the NSA, police violence, voting rights act, a new voting rights act, restore the, Title 4 or Section 4. TPP and trade, Social Security expansion, health care for all, climate change, net neutrality, student debt, free college, immigration reform, tribal rights, fracking, veterans issues, big banks, the terror of monopolies, the $15 minimum wage, card check for unions. That was the list. That's Hillary's list. And if Robbie Mook had run with that list, if the ads on television had been about that instead of about how Donald Trump makes fun of reporters with disabilities, Hillary Clinton would be in the White House. I can't tell you how pissed off I am about how badly this campaign was run. And we should have seen it. I mean, the Republican Party presented 16 normal candidates, and Donald Trump blew right through them. And everybody's like, how did he do that? Well, it's not a secret. He said, I'm different than them. They're the establishment. I'm going to blow up Washington, D.C. and change things. Over on the Democratic side, Bernie said, I'm not the establishment. I'm going to burn down Washington, D.C. and change things, metaphorically speaking. And Hillary Clinton had the ability to say that. In fact, in most of her speeches, she actually did. If you listen to Hillary's speeches, you got it. She was actually campaigning on change. But the media never carried her speeches, and her campaign never promoted those speeches in their advertising or in their public relations or in their emails to donors. This was a terrible mistake. They played right into the hands of Jim DeMint and the Republicans. But here's the most amazing news. This is the first time a Republican president will have a Republican House and a Republican Senate since 1928. Yes, that was Herbert Hoover. Herbert Hoover, as in 1929, the great crash. I'm telling you, this is like, if I had turned my book, The Crash of 2016, into a movie script, this is it. We'll be back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I know we all need to process it. We all need to depressurize a little. We'll be back.